Hi everyone, I'm Kriti Agarwal and you're watching Chili and Vanilla by Chef Kriti, where I bring to you tried and tested recipes of desserts, pastries, and cakes, along with various North Indian traditional specialty dishes. So today we are going to make a decadent chocolate cake layered in silky chocolate ganache and covered in Italian meringue buttercream. I've used many techniques including buttercream stenciling and buttercream cartoon decorations too. So stay tuned. So this is what our final cake is going to look like. Since it has quite a few steps involved, I am splitting the process into different parts. So let's get started. We start by making a chocolate ganache, and for that we need 56 grams of chocolate. Guys, use a very good quality chocolate here because that is what defines the taste of your cake. And please, no compounds here. I am using 54% Calibao. After the chocolate, we use unsalted butter 43 grams and cream 25 grams. Butter or cream दोनों ही room temperature पे होना चाहिए and none of them should be straight out of the fridge. Cream could be any brand that is available in your market. Followed by the cream, we are going to add a good pinch of salt. Salt is very important because that brings out the flavors and balances the sweetness. If you do not have unsalted butter, just leave out the salt in the recipe. We are going to heat the mixture in the microwave now in 10 to 15 seconds bursts while stirring it in between until एक smooth और creamy mixture ready होता है. So I keep repeating the same process. Heat in the microwave and stir it. Heat in the microwave and stir it जब तक कि butter और chocolate पूरा melt हो जाएगा और एक homogeneous mixture ready हो जाएगा. So you can see the consistency is changing each time. And once you get a very silky smooth mixture, we let it rest and thicken. जबकि बीच में we have to stir it once in a while for even cooling. Now you can see here the consistency of the whole mixture has changed and it's become very soft and smooth. Before we start preparing for the sponge, preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius and now we are going to bloom the cocoa powder. For that we need 50 grams of cocoa powder, 100 grams of brown sugar, half a teaspoon of vanilla essence and 250 grams of boiling water. Why do we bloom the cocoa powder? We do that to intensify the chocolate flavor, and it is always advisable that you sieve your cocoa powder and brown sugar क्योंकि cocoa powder और brown sugar में lumps होते हैं. So when you add the water and you try to mix this, it is going to be a little difficult. It is better to sieve it. उसको छान लोगे आप तो lumps नहीं रहेंगे. Coming to the batter, we add 135 grams of unsalted butter. The butter is at room temperature. And 150 grams of powdered sugar. Powdered sugar में lumps होते हैं, that is why I am sieving it here. And now if you have a stand mixer like I have, you could beat the butter and the sugar very well into that, or you could even use your hand mixer. We beat it for about 5 minutes until it becomes very light and fluffy and changes its color to white. To this we start adding 2 eggs one at a time. This is a lot of liquid going into the butter and sugar mix, so it will not come together easily. Add 1 egg, beat a little bit, then add another. And we will have to scrape the bowl down because there will be butter and sugar mix at the bottom of the bowl. So feel free to stop in between, scrape the bowl. So there are no bits of butter and sugar lying in one corner of your bowl. Once you've scraped it well, put it back. You'll see that it starts to come together slowly. Now to this mix, we start by adding the dry ingredients. In goes 225 grams of maida, that's all-purpose flour, 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda and a pinch of salt. And we sieve all the dry ingredients so that there are no lumps of baking powder and baking soda lying anywhere in one corner. Everything should be well mixed. Now we beat all of this at low speed. The video is fast forwarded here and hence you see the mixer moving at a very high speed. But no, it is moving at a slow speed. While mixing all this at low, start adding the bloomed cocoa powder that we prepared earlier. But it doesn't end here because we are going to stop the mixer in between and scrape the bowl down. There will be bits of butter, sugar and flour mix at the bottom. So we scrape it well and then put it back again. But remember not to overmix at this point of time, and at the same time we are not going to leave it undermixed too. After scraping the bowl, I put it back on the mixer. So once you realize that everything is homogeneous and properly mixed, we just stop right at that point. Overmixing से cake tough हो जाता है. It doesn't come out very soft. So once everything is nicely folded in, I pour the batter into a 6-inch by 11 inches pan. It is a flexible pan that I am using, so I can adjust the size according to my requirement. Spread the batter evenly and tap the pan on the surface to remove any air bubbles. Now we bake it at 180 degrees Celsius for 30 to 35 minutes, but start by checking at 30. The cake is done once the skewer inserted into the center comes out clean. मेरा जब ये केक बेक हुआ था, I allowed it to cool, और जब ये slightly warm था, I wrapped it in the cling film very carefully and put it into the freezer. Freezer में रखने से the butter forms up और cake becomes easy to handle. If you leave it in the freezer for a longer time, remember to take it out and keep it into the fridge for some time and then use it. उसको thaw करके फिर use करना है. So this cake is out of the fridge and ready to be layered. I'm going to cut it into 2 even layers. And for layering the cake, we need a serrated knife, a long knife preferably. Since I decided to make a slightly smaller notebook cake, I'm trimming a small portion for our snacking. I will write down the exact quantities of ingredients in the description box below. Now coming to the cutting of cake layers, keep the knife straight. Start in back and forth sawing motion. Now we take a turntable and put a damp sponge over it. This prevents the cake board from sliding. The ganache is ready, it has thickened evenly. And now I place my first cake layer on top of it. You can see it is firm enough to hold easily. And now I smear the entire cake layer with sugar syrup. That's water boiled with very small amount of sugar into it, just to give it a little amount of sweetness. This is to keep the moistness of the cake intact. The cake is really soft and delicate and moist as is. Adding the sugar syrup just keeps it intact. Now we dollop a good amount of the ganache and spread it evenly using a palette knife. So this quantity of ganache is enough for this size of the cake. I did not make any extra because I do not plan to cover the cake entirely in ganache. However, if you would like to cover the cake entirely in ganache, you could increase the quantity of ganache and then cover it entirely on the sides too. But since I plan to cover the cake in buttercream and make decorations on top of it, I am not going to cover it. I'm just using the ganache on the cake layers, the first layer and the second layer, and little bit extra which is left over, I'm going to use it to crumb coat, just to catch some additional crumbs coming out or falling out of the cake. So at this stage, if you plan to cover the entire cake in the ganache, this is how it would look like.